Do not attempt to adjust your television sets. We will control the horizontal. We will control the vertical. We will have everything maintained in an orderly fashion.
Yeah, little question, will you get rid of action figure exclusives so everyone can be happy?
Except for that.
Hello my friends and welcome back to Player Display. So this rainy afternoon we're going to have a little look at two figures I've wanted to have a look at for a very long time now, being the They Live Aliens 2-pack also from NECA, because we've been on a little bit of a NECA spree lately, and nothing wrong with looking at NECA several times in a row, right? So these are of course from the John Carpenter classic being They Live, a cult movie that maybe not everyone knows, but it's definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it before. Definitely watch that first before you watch this review, because it really is an experience. It's a simple movie, but it is quite a bit of fun. Definitely underrated in the horror zeitgeist, but it is quite a joy. But all that being said, let's just go ahead and jump right into the box before we look at these fine two figures over here. Being that these figures are not part of the Ultimate releases, and also since they're part of the Retro Cloth line, they are a little bit on the bigger side and thus need different packaging. So over here, it's pretty simple. We just got an open window here, along with a They Live title at the bottom, Alien 2-pack right over there. And as you can see through the box, we can also picture this black and white, very moody skyline of whatever city that this film takes place in. I'm not totally sure. But if you go to the sides, you can see the classic poster for They Live right over there, along with some size comparison spoilers off to the sides. Off to this side, we have the exact same thing, nothing too different or special over there. Although down here, we have the male alien. On this side, we have the female, so we got a little bit of a variation there. Off to the back, totally in black and white, kind of making me wish that they also did black and white variants of these figures, but regardless, they still look fantastic. Over here, we have several display options for these figures, which aren't many. I mean, they're pretty standard human figures. I mean, they are like us. They don't do a whole bunch of backflips or anything crazy like that. They walk around and talk just like we do, even though they are disgusting, horrible aliens underneath. If you go ahead and push in, we have a little bit of a bio right there to spoil the movie for you if you haven't watched it by now, in which case, shame on you. But moving on down, pretty much just more images if we want to go ahead and pan around, along with the TV option, which is very neat and a fine addition to this assortment. Off to the bottom, a little look at the fine artists who made these figures possible, along with the Universal logo. Then up here, kind of as we saw just before with the New York Comic Con Ghostface, we have
Green Arrow.
And what's a good old box without your classic usual case of -3
Start audience!
So I think we'll go ahead and start with the male alien for no real reason other than he's a little bit more iconic than the female version, since he's one that's on the news prompter and also on the TV. But the reason why I wanted to start out here and not with the finer details just yet is I wanted to talk a little bit about the retro cloth figures. First of all, they are a little taller than the typical NECA releases, which are usually 7 inches, but in this case, they usually hit about 7.5 to 8, so they are a little bit on the taller side. A second thing worth mentioning is that they are usually built on the exact same base body, except for maybe a few different unique pieces, like he has unique hands, a unique head sculpt, and of course he has unique clothing. And another thing about the retro cloth figures that I've noticed for the few that I have is they usually have a tough time standing on their own. They usually require some sort of figure stand, and not just one that's under their feet with a little peg, because sometimes they don't even have peg holes to go with them. But usually you need something that's more of a crane system, a little bit of an armature to keep them upright. So as for this guy, he is not standing on his own 2 feet, quite literally. So we can even go ahead and attempt that. But let's see if we can get him over there. And no, we really can't, because as you can see with the shoes, which are sculpted very nicely, they are a little bit warped. So I might need to drop these into some hot water. Maybe that'll fix them up, get them a little more straightened out. Although if you pull up the pant leg a little bit, you can actually see the base color that he is molded in, which is this nice teal blue of sorts. I don't know what you call it, like a pale sea blue, something along those lines. But anyways, moving on to the figure, the rest of which being absolutely beautiful. Of course, the main attraction with these retro-carded figures is more often than not the head sculpt. And in this case, man, did they nail it, as NECA often does. We have this really disgusting, emaciated-looking face. Reminds me a little bit of Freddy Krueger, almost. Kind of got that pizza face thing with all the craters. But on the surface, it's more of a blue, and then inside the craters themselves, it's almost this gory crimson red, almost bleeding out, looking very fantastic. Although when you get to the jaw, it gets a little bit more yellowed. Then as for the teeth, they are more human-looking and exposed and totally lipless. How these things talk, no idea, but that leads to the uncanniness that they give off in the films, so I'm totally good with that. The nose is not indented. It is actually just a standard nose kind of popping out of the makeup, which is exactly how it looked in the film, so no complaints there. This adds to the overall campiness of these designs, looking fantastic. But I think my absolute favorite part of these figures, and really what is absolutely sells them to me, sell, kind of like in the film, is the eyes. I really love what they did here. They're not standard human eyes, obviously. They almost have this star-looking design in place of the usual pupil, and they are, of course, painted in a very good silver, which also makes them look very good under a certain light. You can see as I tilt the head around a little bit, with a little bit of sneak peek at articulation, they do shine just a little bit, and especially from certain angles and certain darkness, they really do pop out at you, and they are very creepy, so I love that a lot. As for the hair, it is also very well done. I mean, it's the least interesting thing here, but they still paid a good amount of attention to the paint. It's not just in a slate molded piece of brown or anything. They gave it a little bit of a wash, make it look like each strand of hair is a little bit more visible, so I do very much appreciate that. There are other lines where they just don't paint the hair at all, and it really bugs me, but here, they did everything just fine, so love that HUD sculpt a lot. Moving on to the soft goods, this guy pretty much just has a standard-looking tuxedo suit of sorts, but yeah, it's pretty much exactly what you expect from a nice, clean-cut looking suit as you're going off to the bank or something like that. Nice yellow-looking tie and also handkerchief over there, and then we also have 3 plastic buttons sewn in on the lower part of the tunic. That is held in by Velcro, as is most things on retro cloth figures, as is the pants right there. So if you want, you could open that up and you can adjust things a little bit with some tweezers if you feel that things aren't quite as shapely as you prefer. If you want things to be a little more form-fitting or a little tighter in the waist, you could totally do that. It's basically a full-body costume, so you can tweak it in however manner that you prefer. Off the arms, I mean, just sleeves, no cuffs or anything, nothing too fancy. But then we do have our next uniquely molded aspect of this figure, being the really creepy looking hands. If you go ahead and bring them up a little bit to the face, then you can see it's painted pretty much the same way, although the face, I forgot to mention, does have a very nice gloss to it, which you do not see on the hands. That would have been nice, but honestly, not a rain on my parade. I think it still looks very sharp and interesting looking. Just really creepy and weird looking 80s designs. I really love these guys a lot. Then going down to the pants, it's just black pants, no pockets, no buttons to speak of at all. Then we go down to the shoes here. We kind of already talked about these, but let's pull up the pant legs just so we can see them a little bit better. No painted in laces, not that they really need to be, but they're pretty much done in a single piece, one hinge, solid black with a little bit of gloss, and yeah, I think they definitely do need a little bit of heat to really serve their purpose a bit better, especially since he has no peg holes at the bottom, so that's something he's definitely going to need. I don't know why they didn't do that. There's definitely not enough room to do it. But I'll definitely give those feet some warm water, and I think he should be able to stand a little bit better. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll do a little update in the comments if I ever get around to that. Now let's go ahead and hop right into articulation, because that's pretty standard stuff, especially with these base bodies. They're pretty much always the same. I believe it is a ball joint in the head, so he does have some down. He's got a tad back, not a whole lot. You can see that it's jointed up here at the top of the neck. He also has a little bit of tilt, very good for emoting, especially since he's a news anchor alien, I suppose we could call him. He's got some swivel right there, although the back hair sculpt does stop him a little bit. Oh, when you do that, you do make out a little bit of extra paint detail here right at the neck, which I really like. That's really sharp. As for the arms, of course, because of all the soft goods, it's going to be a little bit dicey, but you can get them to almost all the way up. As for going out, it's pretty much a sharp 90. He does seem to have a bicep swivel in there. Single jointed elbows, not great, but it's something. That's pretty common with these retro cloth figures. Have I said retro cloth enough? Probably not. I'll probably be saying that again later in this review. I'm sorry about that. We have a swivel in the wrists, along with hinge in and out for the lefty. As for the righty, exactly the same. Down to the waist, we have what seems like a ball joint. No, I don't think there's a ball joint in the torso, but we do have a swivel at the waist, so he's got something there. As for the legs, they kick that far out, so you can do a good side kick. Can he kick forward? Yes, he can. Not by a considerable amount. Actually, let me go ahead and push out a little bit. Sorry about that. As for knees, single jointed, doesn't hit 90. And as for the ankles, no rocker at all. Piggy. That's how these figures go. But they do come pretty far enough forward. Again, doesn't need to be crazy. And you can do a decent amount back. Of course, these retro cloth figures are less meant for churning out a whole bunch of them, but more so using a base body to release more occult, less known characters, and then throwing on some soft goods to sell the image, and they did a very good job here. I suspect maybe if they rise in popularity enough in the zeitgeist, then that's when they go ahead and do an ultimate release, kind of like with the miner from My Bloody Valentine, who we will also look at. In size comparisons, they did the retro cloth version, and now they're doing an actual ultimate 7-inch release. So, I don't know, maybe we'll see the same thing with these guys over here as well. We can have a whole army of them. Wouldn't that be great? Now here we are at the equally creepy female alien. They are anonymous, of course. And one thing I forgot to mention, which is also on the male alien, is they each have a little bit of a watch here, which they use to communicate to their mothership or to each other or whoever. But he also has it, although you do really need to dig the sleeve down. And let's see. Yeah, it's different, but it is there. And here it's kind of just 2 buckles, but on her it is a straight up watch. So yeah, just a little detail I forgot to mention with him, but on her it's more apparent. So anyways, back to the female alien we go. Let's do a standing test. And getting her as straight up as I can, it doesn't seem quite easy. Yeah, her Farrah Fawcett hair makes her a little bit top heavy, so that's not going to be so easy. But other than that, it is a beautiful looking figure. Well, beautiful in the sense that it's well executed. So going into the ugly that is this alien design, we again see the same red and blue motifs that we saw with the male. We got the yellow down here at the jaw. Love that variation. Just a whole lot of colors that should not be together, but really do sell the image of this disgusting, grotesque looking alien. Same silvery eyes, also just as shimmery, looking very good. I also really like these hoop earrings that they have. They're not loose or anything, they're molded into the hair, which is also very well painted. I love this a lot. I love how 80s it is. It properly dates this character design. I think it's a lot of fun. We also have this pearl necklace, which is also a loose piece, so you can rotate this a little bit, move it up and down if you feel the desire to do so. And then over here, we also get a good painted neck, a little bit more visible than it was on the male counterpart over there, so that's very good. As for the rest of the outfit, it looks like it's just a single piece, kind of this, I don't know what you'd call it, but you got the skirt combined with the top portion. I'm not an expert in clothing, so this is what you got, just a really nice gray dress sort of thing, but it looks very good. It's very nice material too, a little bit thicker than what we saw on the news anchor over there, which is kind of just the name I've given him. But yeah, it's got some nice layers to it. You can see it's got these purposefully done folds, kind of sewn in over itself, goes all the way down to the rest of the skirt. Got a little bit of that on the arms as well. And then as for the rest of the body, it's pretty straightforward. You got the base blue body, as we saw on the male body, but of course we got a female basic build underneath. We also have the watch over here. We can go ahead and have a closer look at that, because I think it's very well painted, looking very sharp. No button, no clock face on there for whatever reason. I guess that would be very tough to paint in, but off to the back, just got these gold little clips right there. But yeah, I actually didn't think that they would be doing this at all because it's such a small detail, but I'm glad they did it. Now you can also have them communicating to each other. You can't get them like going two-handed onto one wrist. Unfortunately, that's just the limitations of these base bodies, but not a huge deal. It's still nice that they have them at all. Just pimps them out a little bit more. Down to the legs, we have what looks like a paint change over here. So now it looks like she has some nylons going on down to her high heels, which also make her just as difficult to stand. But interestingly enough, they gave her a peg hole, but they didn't give one to the male. So if you had like one of those DC multiverse stands, you could put one of those under her feet, and she'd stand up a little bit better. So that's an option for you. But yeah, that's pretty much it for details. So going on to articulation, we have a similar ball joint up at the head, though it's a little bit more limited because of the giant hair that we have here. You have a little bit of tilt, though. You have some tilt forward, no tilt back at all. That's pretty much what I expected there. Though you do have some swivel, more so this way than this way. Don't know why that is, but that's totally fine. As for the arms, swivel up. Actually, I feel like it moves a little bit better than the Anchorman just because it's a softer material and it's a single layer of clothing, so a little less restrictions up at the shoulders. Comes up to not quite 90. I don't think there's a bicep swivel here. The limbs are definitely smaller, so I wouldn't put it past them. That makes perfect sense. Elbows come to not quite 90, but it gets close. As for the wrists, they swivel. They also go in and out just the same. As for the torso, nothing, but we do have a waist swivel, which can go as far as you desire. You'd probably need to shove over the skirt a little bit if you really wanted her, or looking at 90 degrees for whatever reason. As for the legs, you can't really kick forward or out a whole ton because this is a very tight cloth piece, which is totally fine by me. She's just going to be walking around. She's not going to be doing any crazy kicks or anything like that. I mean, that's not what these characters do, so that's totally all right by me. As for the legs, the knees anyways, they come to pretty much 90 on this figure, just about. And then as for the ankles, again, no rocker, but you still get pretty okay back, but a great amount forward. So you could still have her walking around the streets of some metropolitan area, just doing her shopping, whatever you want. But yeah, great figure. I think I like the male one more. That's just a preference base, but she's an excellent figure as well. I mean, neither is better than the other. I think they're both wonderfully executed and just a lot of fun. Now, these figures do not come with a ton of accessories because, again, they're not ultimate figures. They are retro-clothed. Have you been counting how many times I've said that by now? But anyways, the accessories they do come with are pretty appropriate, and they shouldn't have too many things anyways. They don't hold a ton of stuff in the actual film. But one really awesome accessory they did not need, but I'm glad it's included, is this TV displaying what looks like the male alien figure himself with this big old obey sign in the back, which I really love. I really love this TV too. It looks properly dated. I really liked when they did a TV for the Silver Shamrock kids from Halloween 3, the season of the witch. And they did exactly the same thing over here, where you have the TV. You don't have a holographic looking thing over here like they did on the Shamrock TV that they had, but you do on the back have a little bit of a nail hole. So if you wanted this elevated a little bit in your display, you could absolutely do that. You could have that on a parlor wall or something like that if you really wanted to. And also it's in black and white, so it's also a really neat little idea. Like if the figures are going to be in color, kind of cool to have the TV in black and white. And now that I think about it, you don't really know what colors they are until the very end of the film when the signal's destroyed. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Then again, you got the poster before you even start watching the movie, which kind of tells you ahead of time. But all that being said, it's a great accessory. Then over here we have, I guess this could be a book or more likely a magazine. That was definitely a pivotal moment in the film where you have the main character picking up this magazine and then he sees the obey, watch TV, no imagination, and stay asleep. Just all these little hypnotic slogans pasted all throughout the media. Just so much social commentary splattered throughout the film. And then over here, I guess this would be a newspaper in this case. I actually kind of thought it would be like a grocery bag or something, shopping bag or whatever, but it's still a really good piece. This time we have buy, submit, marry, and reproduce, which is probably my favorite, and no ideas. Just two really great pieces over here. So let's bring the figures back in and see what it takes for them to hold these two pamphlets over here. Probably not the TV. That wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. And that would make them even more top-heavy than they already are, right? So this is pretty much how I'm choosing to display these figures, pretty much putting them together on this third-party figure stand that I got off of Amazon. You can get a whole bunch of these in bulk if you really wanted to. Let's go ahead, get the female one in here. Just going to clip her right in. And then, yeah, as you can see now, she's standing no problem. I'm actually going to put her feet over that little peg right there. Just give her a little bit more stability. So let's get her hand up. And I usually find the best way to have a figure holding a paper good is by using the thumb and the pinky and kind of putting everything in between. Unfortunately, with these, they get a little crumpled up if you want them holding things properly. But we can have her holding the Obey magazine right here. You can kind of, let's see. Yeah, we got a little bit of a gap between the pinky and that other finger right there. And there we go. She can hold the magazine. She be reading it. Oh, there goes the stand a little. Let me go fix that up. As you can see, things get a little bit finicky when it comes to standing up a retro cloth figure, but once again, in a pose you like, it's not too bad. Not straight in front of her, that's something I'll work on, but it's still not too bad. Then we got the male figure over here. We can give him the newspaper. Well, first let's get him on the stand Over here, you can get them on separate stands as well, but I kind of like having them both together. Think they're a married couple? They just might be. I don't know. We got the newspaper over here. Maybe he just bought it and he's not reading it yet, so we could just get that in one hand of his. Again, you probably need 2 fingers, so that way it kind of clenches in, so you could be holding that to the side, just like so. Then we could pan back on out. And there we go. Now they're holding their paper goods and telling the entire population exactly what to do without them knowing through subliminal messaging, which is pretty much the point of the damn movie. So there you are. Now here they are next to the only other 2 retro cloth figures that I own. I just always prefer the Ultimate figures, but that's just me. Everyone's got their own preference. But it is a really nice treatment. It really works well with all these 4 figures here. So on the left we have the Miner, or Harry Warden, or Axel, whoever you want. A little bit spoilerly there, I apologize, from My Bloody Valentine. And obviously I made him even more bloody than the original figure was, so a little bit of extra paint on him. Then on the right we have, from Nightbreed, we have Decker. And as you can see, everything is scaled pretty well together. It's kind of its own unique line. Not as many figures in the Retro Cloth series, but you do get more unique characters. Like, you wouldn't expect them to make figures of Decker or the They Live aliens. And at least for a time, for the Miner over here, now we're getting an Ultimate release of him, which I will not be getting personally because it's all the exact same accessories, just not worth it for me. But still a great figure, by the way, hands down, one of my favorites. And then over here, we also have who we just reviewed, being the New York Comic Con Ghostface, and this is of course part of the Ultimate series, and as you can see, he is on the shorter side. So if you want to get a retro cloth figure, they are going to be out of scale with your Ultimate figures, but they still are a lot of fun. It's nice to have a different tangible experience. And also, these are figures I probably wouldn't have interacting with the other figures from the Ultimate Wave. Like, I don't think I'd have them alongside Ghostface. I don't think they'd be chatting to him, giving him the good word of obey or anything like that. So they'd be, like, on separate shelves, more or less. So that's why it works for me, getting figures from different scales. So not a problem for me at all, but it all depends on how you collect. Then as for our last size comparison, here we have Star Wars The Black Series, Mecha Muck.
Watch TV. All right, I will. Why is it that everything on TV is either politics or cartoons? You should go ahead and watch the rest of the videos on YouTube, especially on this channel. Watch it. Watch it. Watch it. You should watch it. Like, watch it.
And thus concludes our look at the They Live Aliens 2-pack, which is a review I wanted to do for a while, mainly because it's one of our first times looking at a retro cloth figure. I think I might have had the other 2 in size comparisons before, but we've never actually had a review at them, actually looking at the details, looking at the pros and cons. So, first of all, I really love these figures. I think they're a lot of fun, and it's appropriate that they're in the retro cloth line, where they got the base body, and they got the clothes on top, and they don't have crazy articulation and accessories, because there's not a whole lot of things that they need to be holding, and they don't need to be moving a whole ton. Usually you see them just on the street corners, off at a curb, or just going to a shop. They're meant to be very mundane and just uncanny, just standing around, not really minding anyone's business but their own. They're just meant to be normal townsfolk, and it's totally appropriate that they can't do anything too crazy beyond the articulation that they have. Wish they could stand better, that's a damn fact, but I still really like these figures. And of course, another reason why I really wanted to look at these is they're from a scale that we haven't really looked at before from NECA, at least not this closely. So, what do you want to get these figures for yourself? At least anything from the retro cloth line from NECA? I highly recommend them, just as long as you know the pros and cons that come with them. I mean, I think the biggest drawback for some folks is that, of course, most are going to be accustomed to anything from the Ultimate line, which are in the 7-inch, but as for these guys, they're in the 8-inch. So if you want anything from this line, you're going to have to make that a little bit of accommodation in your head. Like, do you want to get an 8-inch figure that's going to be a little taller than everyone else on your shelf? For me, I have no issue with that whatsoever. For me, that just means it'll be a little bit more towards the back. It'll be a little bit more separate, kind of a standalone sort of piece. These 2 I consider to be one piece together. I just think they both need to be interacting with each other, or both doing the same thing. Here it looks like, I don't know, there are two Mormons giving handouts at door to door or something like that, but I really love the way that these guys are assembled. They just look like normal-ass pedestrians with a really ugly second face to show off. And yeah, I highly recommend dipping into this scale from NECA, just as long as you're okay with the scale, you don't mind soft goods. For me, I personally love it if done right. In this case, I think it's done really well, and also if you don't mind that our articulation isn't too crazy. Again, for these folks, don't need a ton. What they have does the job. They could be walking around, doing some shopping, hanging out together, or whatever you want, really. Not doing backflips or anything Jedi-like, but that's totally okay. Totally fine by me. So that's pretty much going to conclude things. So if you enjoyed this review, then please, as per usual, be sure to
Like, comment,
Ring the bell to be notified of our latest arrivals.
And subscribe. This is the editor speaking, humbly reminding you to support the Patreon in the description to guarantee new content every single week.
Thank you guys very much for watching. Rock on, and I will see you all later.